Kia ora koutou katoa and good morning everybody. Cabinet met late yesterday afternoon to make a preliminary decision on COVID-19 alert levels. In order to confirm our decision today, we wanted three additional important things to occur. First, there were no new community cases overnight. That's important because it means as of today we've now gone 14 days or a full transmission cycle since the last exposure event where we were concerned people could have come in contact with the virus. Secondly, we wanted to see the results of day 12 testing of the last remaining close contacts of case M who are in isolation, which all came back negative overnight. There are some remaining day 12 tests, but these are for individuals who are already in our quarantine facility and they are due to be tested today. As a result, I can now confirm that Cabinet has agreed to move Auckland out of COVID Alert Level 2 as of midday today. That means Tamaki Makaurau will join the rest of New Zealand at Alert Level 1. This follows 6 days of Auckland being at Alert Level 2, with 7 days prior to that at Alert Level 3. The increase in alert levels was, of course, due to the Auckland February cluster, 15 positive community cases outside managed isolation facilities. All of those 15 cases are either in a quarantine facility or have recovered. The Director General of Health has advised Cabinet he considers the outbreak to be contained. I know everyone in our largest city will be looking forward to a weekend with fewer restrictions, with life feeling mostly back to normal, and Auckland deserves that. Once again, the city has stepped up and did what it needed to do in the face of these new community cases, and for that we all say thank you. But now we need to keep working hard to maintain the position everyone has worked so hard for. Government will keep doing all we can. This week we announced the purchase of enough Pfizer vaccines to vaccinate everyone in New Zealand. We outlined how our vaccination program, the largest in New Zealand's history, will roll out over the coming year. We've also provided the first vaccination shot to the majority at this stage of our frontline border workers, thereby providing an additional layer of protection to help avoid further lockdowns. We announced a new advisory group that will ensure continual improvements in our COVID response, providing impartial advice on the performance and impact of the whole system, managed isolation and quarantine facilities, planning, strategy, and public communications and responses with the community. Our systems have improved so much over the past year, and while we continue to manage this tricky virus, we will keep asking ourselves, though, what more can we do and how can we improve? But as always, COVID requires a team effort. Please, if you're not scanning in regularly to places that you visit, please do. Activate Bluetooth on your phone as well, if you are able. Knowing where people have been when we come to contact trace is so important, and you will have seen how this can really speed up our contact tracing work should we come across a case. To businesses, whilst at this stage we've not made contact tracing compulsory, please make the QR code highly visible in your workplace, and please remind everybody to use it. And as always, if you are unwell, please stay home and get a test. And finally, look after one another and enjoy your weekend. I'm happy to take questions.
What was the point of waiting for day 12 tests for people who were already in isolation if there was no threat to the community? Why did you not announce this decision?
No, that was not what I said. Of course, we wanted three pieces of information. This now means that we have gone the 14 days, and we always said we would announce before the weekend, but wanted to take that time at level 2 in order to feel assured that we had testing in the wider community as well, to give us reassurance that we didn't have transmission that we had not picked up through contact tracing. So we've got those test-ins overnight. We usually wait till 1 o'clock to announce that, but I can confirm this morning we have no new positives out of those results. The second point is not all of those tests, as I've said, the ones we don't have yet, the day 12 tests, they're in quarantine. The others, yes, in isolation, but we do want to make sure those day 12s will tell us whether or not there's additional contacts we need to trace around them. That's also important for us.
So only concerning tests came in overnight that made, why could you not have just told us?
That was one piece of information. Gina, to be clear, that discussion was a preliminary one. We said if tomorrow we have these additional pieces of information, including our wider community testing, now that we've gone the 14 days, we will feel confident to lift out, and we're lifting at midday. We're not waiting till midnight because we've got those morning results in. So it wasn't just contacts, it was also the wider community testing. Yeah.
Prime Minister, why didn't you tell people last night that that was your thinking? Because they could make a decision about what they were going to do.
Oh, well, look, at any point, every day when we stand up and say, you know, that today we have no new cases, at any point someone will make an assumption about whether or not we're going to be in a position to move. There has to be a point where we make the official announcement. We've actually done something a little unusual here. Usually we take an order through to midnight. When we move to level 1, we don't have to worry so much about the legal orders. And so we've actually taken the opportunity to lift as soon as we can now that we've got the results through. But I wanted those results through before I made a decision.
So when was Clark?
Yeah. Notice sufficient for business owners and event organisers that have usually had a 48-hour period?
Yeah, and that's where, you'll have to remember, that's when we're usually moving up into positions, up or down levels, that often mean there are legal orders to accompany them. So we have to make sure we get those drafted and we give notice of them. The point is we have to make a decision at some point. So no matter what time we make the decision, someone will say, why didn't you forewarn us and give us 48 hours notice? For us, making the decision once we've got the full information, but doing it as soon as we can then give notice of, is getting that balance right. We've made the decision now, we have all of the results in and we feel confident. We're now lifting at midday, we're not waiting till midnight. Hopefully that is, you know, doing that as soon as we can provide some comfort that we are acting as quickly as we can.
So Prime Minister...
Is it appropriate that Clark ordered information before you told the public?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Clark's been tweeting information that it was an in-principle decision and defending your actions.
Oh no, that is not at all true. What he will be reflecting is in the media accusations that are being made that we've made a decision. As I've just said, it was an in-principle decision. That is not correct that he is forewarned of what the decision is.
Prime Minister, the tweet is quite detailed. It says you've made an in-principle decision and you are waiting on pending data that you'll be getting this morning. So when was he briefed on Cabinet's
he has not.
decision?
He has not. And look, what I've just said is exactly the same as what you've repeated in that text. Yeah.
A lot of people aren't happy, obviously, about this in-principle decision last night and then announcing it today. Will you be reviewing that at all?
No, I mean, look, obviously the final decision was, of course, awaiting these results. And so what we've done is, in order to move as quickly as we can, instead of getting the results this morning, then holding a cabinet meeting and then coming back out, we've said, look, if these things all come through negative, are we comfortable then to lift? And the answer was yes, and that's exactly what we've done. I think for the most part, the wider public will appreciate that we've tried to get everything lined up in order to move as quickly as we can. And what I've given you in the front part of my address today is simply an explanation of the process we've gone through and why we've done what we've done. Other people haven't been aware of the decision.
Is that in keeping with the Cabinet manual for Clark to know that you've made an in-principle decision, what you were waiting on before the public knew that?
He has not known the decision, he's known the process, which is exactly what ministers conveyed in the public domain. So Minister Parker, I imagine, probably would have been questioned. Even Minister Nash last night talked about the process. Everyone knew we had a cabinet meeting yesterday afternoon because I talked about it. And of course, I talked about the fact that some of these decisions would be made, but we would be making an announcement the next day. That's information in the public domain, and it is by no means a breach of any cabinet manual, and it's exactly what ministers would have conveyed.
Prime Minister, if there were no cases today, what decision would be made? Would you still be looking at turning to level 1?
Sorry, do you want to repeat the start of your question?
Yeah, sorry. If there were no confirmed cases today, what would the decision have been?
Oh, well, look, then we would have had to have reviewed based on the nature of those cases. And so, for instance, if we had some that may have been involved in high exposure events, we may have looked at whether or not we had the confidence to lift those social gathering restrictions. So all of it's material. You know, we don't take these decisions lightly. And I imagine had we come out and said we've made an in-principle decision, and then this morning we had a community case, and I said, I'm sorry, we're actually not moving at all, there would have equally been a large amount of criticism from everyone in this room. So to answer your question, Lisa, that's one of the reasons. For us, it was about seeing the hard data, because it equally would have been very hard for someone to move on Thursday in preparation, then have us change our position. I wanted to give certainty, and I think that's the right thing to do.
So this is saying that they stand to lose tens of thousands of dollars because they haven't been able to take forward bookings.
Well,
this evening because the original plan was to move out on Saturday.
Well,
They're
the old,
missing out on
I
Friday.
doubt very much any hospitality business would say to us, we would rather have you held on and moved on Saturday, even if you knew it was possible to go today. I think that what we're weighing up is here, moving as quickly as we can, but having weighed up all of the risks, having the data, making the decision as soon as we can. And keep in mind, we've done this many, many times before. We've always factored in the need to try and give as much notice, but I think making the decision to announce something tomorrow simply so people could prepare, even if we're ready today, would not have been the right one.
Prime Minister, just
Yeah,
to be
sorry,
clear.
in the middle.
The most economically in Aotearoa. So what is the government looking at in terms of a sustainable approach?
Sorry, what was Sal?
Auckland being the most affected
Yep.
economically, what is the government looking at in terms of a sustainable approach?
Well, of course, sorry, for the alert levels you're talking about, the impacts of the alert levels?
Well, yo-yo lockdowns.
Well, of course, we respond whenever we have cases. That's what our alert level system is for. But what we've put in place, of course, is the resurgence payment, which has been available since that period when we had the level 3 and then moved to 2. The wage subsidy also applies for that 7-day period, because that was obviously where they would have been hardest hit. So Auckland and Tamaki Makaurau particularly is able to access that higher level of support, whereas other parts of the country are a bit more limited to the resurgence payment.
There's been a call to vaccinate people coming into the country. What's your view on that?
Well, ultimately we have to make sure that we are acting in such a way that we prevent any entry into the country. At the moment, though, if we vaccinate someone when they arrive, it doesn't actually provide that protection, because even after the first vaccine, it takes about 3 weeks for it to be effective. The second reason why we're not just saying everyone who comes in needs to be vaccinated is our citizens around the world won't necessarily have access to a vaccine right now. So it could then become a barrier to them being able to come home, and we can't do that. There might be a point where a vaccine provides enough protection that we'll say that will matter when you come in, and it's widely available enough that we could do that, but that's not where we are right now.
Prime Minister.
Numbers of people entering into the country.
Sorry, what was that?
Will there be limited numbers entering into the country by the government?
Well, at the moment, the only limitation we've placed on is those people's legal status, so whether or not they are a permanent resident and a citizen. But we have to acknowledge, there is a form of restriction by the fact that people have to have a managed isolation place, and that does place some limitations on people.
Why did Cabinet not just make this morning?
Sorry?
Why did Cabinet not just make this
And we've done that before, but one of the things that we identified was that sometimes the processing of the orders means that we have a lag. So this was a way we could reduce down any issues there by pre-drafting an order, making sure that once we were sure that we had our cases through, that order could take effect. So, in fact, what we've been criticised here for is this assumption that we made a decision, didn't act on it. In fact, what we did was try and maximise as much as possible the ability to move early for business.
Was it all about your availability, your scheduling, being able to
No.
communicate it? Could you not have just released a
No. Gina, at some point we have to make a decision. We wanted to do that with all the results we had in this morning. The easiest way for us to then make a move very, very quickly is actually to pre-prepare. Say, if those results come back clear, let's make the decision in principle now, get the orders drafted, and be ready to go.
Prime Minister, were you concerned that...
I'm talking about the vaccine efficacy. So has the New Zealand government, when setting up the vaccine strategy, has the New Zealand government go with the Chinese counterpart about the efficacy of the Sinovac and Kerching vaccination?
Well, actually, I mean, one of the issues I think the world is going to have to grapple with is no one, I think, wants to make a decision as nations around what they consider to be an effective vaccine. It's actually medical experts that need to make those decisions. So that judgment isn't for us. I think what we want to do, and we'd all benefit from, is having, therefore, an international body who is able to establish a way of recognising and identifying those who have been vaccinated with effective vaccine that other countries should allow people to move freely because they have received.
Talking about the vaccination choice for the whole nation. So you have set up the Pfizer vaccine for the primary vaccination choice. So there is a high proportion from our leadership that they want the Chinese vaccination to have here in New Zealand. What's your own?
Well, we will be making available the vaccine that has gone through our approval process. And so for now, that's Pfizer that has independently gone through the MedSafe process. What we will be doing is making sure that that is available to everybody in New Zealand. And that doesn't, and in that regard, it doesn't matter what your status is. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a resident or you're on a work visa, or even if through historic reason that you're here without legal status. Everybody who is in New Zealand will access a free, approved vaccine.
Prime Minister, just a point of clarification. Are you categorically saying that Clark Gayford had no access to privileged information?
Of course. I have not seen my partner since yesterday. He absolutely has not, and I really reject the implication. I think what he has taken off his own bat to rebut is the suggestion that we've had a decision that we've sat on. That is information we were sharing since yesterday, the process we were following.
Okay, so how worried were you in making this decision that people would jump the gun and go to level 1 behaviours if you gave them a decision in principle?
Well, look, I mean, that is one of the things that we factor in. But ultimately, as I've said, the most important thing was negative test results. And that's what we've had through this morning. I always said at the beginning of this decision, we were taking level 2 for 14 days and that would make a decision before the weekend. And that's exactly what we've done. Okay, I'll take, maybe if there's anyone that hasn't taken the question, I'll take the last two. Jenna.
Were you overly cautious with lifting these restrictions because the last decision was wrong and we ended up in further lockdown?
Well, no, I would refute that they were wrong. I mean, some of the issues that we saw occurred in level 3, for instance. But we have always taken a cautious approach. So I think, as I say again, if we'd taken a decision last night without having gone the full 14 days as we intended, and without having some of those day 12 test results come through, and we had an issue, I'm sure that there would have been a lot of commentary about that. So I would rather have that assurance. I imagine the public would as well. And that's why we've taken this decision as soon as we've been able. And yeah, final question.
Is there a date when you'll be getting vaccinated yet?
No, I haven't set one yet. But again, I recognise the role that I need to play. For me, though, it has been about prioritising the people who benefit the most. I'm not someone who comes into contact with our border frequently or that is at risk in that way, but I do accept I have a role model.
Wait till the first group is fully vaccinated before?
Oh, I haven't set quite, a date quite yet, because of course after that first border workforce group, we've got family and whānau, and then we have people in, for instance, residential settings who are highly at risk. So there's a point in there somewhere that I will, but for me it's just making a judgment call on when's the right time.
Non-COVID-related question quickly.
Yeah.
Why does Ginny Anderson charge taxpayers more to rent her office than she gets charged in Hartsdale? Is it a scam?
Look, this I believe would be an issue that's been traversed for quite some time over a building that she accesses via a union lease. But I would need to refresh myself on those arrangements. But to answer your question in short, no, it is not.
Prime Minister,
Okay.
just a quick question on
Sorry,
tourism,
I did give warning.
please.
I did give warning.
Out of kindness, just one more question, Prime Minister.